So, name a chamber of the heart. So. Okay, what is significant about that left ventricle? It's the biggest, and what circuit is it in? Okay, it is. Sorry, I needed to cough. I didn't want that to go in the microphone. Okay. So then its counterpart, the right ventricle, it's on the opposite side of the heart. That must be in the pulmonary circuit. Or is it in the systemic circuit? Why does it have to be in the pulmonary circuit? You're right. Because where is blood leaving? Remember, ventricles send blood away because the atria are receivers. So if the blood is being sent away like it is in a ventricle, on the right side, which is not as big as the left, where's it going? Okay? And it has to go, let me try that again. It has to go through which valve? It's kind of like a moon, we said. Lunar means moon, and so it would be the semilunar valve. If you really wanted to be specific, you would say the pulmonary semilunar valve, okay? So pick left or right atria, okay? So the left atria, that is receiving blood from the rest of the body or from the lungs. Why are you right? Okay? And then you said left, correct? Okay. I didn't want to say you said left, right? Because then it gets confused. You said left, correct. Okay? Well, to make sense of this, okay, because you said left atria, that blood is coming from the lungs. That's right, because gas exchange has taken place. This is sending blood to the rest of the body, this left ventricle, and the workload that has to go through makes it the largest chamber, just like what you had said. So this sends blood to the lungs. So these two, okay, are not in the same circuit. This is the systemic circuit, where the right ventricle is the pulmonary circuit, okay? And then you could say the same thing for these. Since this is coming from the lungs, this is part of the pulmonary circuit. And then you have the smallest chamber, probably the right atria, that's coming from the rest of the body, which is part of the systemic circuit, because it's coming from the body, not the lungs, okay? Then there is a space between these two, okay? What is that space called? Starts with an S. And we said it may have to be surgically corrected. Yeah, it's a septum. That's right. And if there's a hole in that septum, it may have to be surgically corrected, because if that hole is present, what does that blood do? It's going to mix back and forth with one another, and the reason that's a potential problem is what type of blood. Yeah, blood is not necessarily blood. It's got one side has oxygen, the other side does not. So you have to keep that in mind. The left side has oxygenated blood, where the right side has deoxygenated blood. Okay? So this is just what we had just talked about. This separates the left and right sides. Okay? What is it? How can we know that this is in your atria, other than us telling you that, and that's on the right side? Yeah. Since it's got an R in here, that puts it on the right side. Then whether you choose to go by mitral or bicuspid valve, okay, because the author has both of those in the book. It'll say, I believe, it'll say mitral valve and then bicuspid in in parentheses. Just means it's the same thing. Okay? And then finally, the largest artery in the body is associated with this, your aortic valve, and which chamber of the heart is this hooked to? If it's the largest artery, so that means it's part of the systemic circuit. Is it the left or the right ventricle? Why are you correct? Yeah, left is bigger. The workload is more. You could say it is for the right ventricle too, but the left ventricle has to send blood to the rest of the body. The right ventricle just has to send it to the lungs. Okay, and that's what we're talking about here. These are larger than the atria, and the left is much, well, I don't know how much larger than the right, but because the workload is greater. Okay. And once we get this through, we will discuss that with your heart model here. And the reason we talk about the path of the blood through the heart is because not only does it mention the chambers, but also the valves that are present in between each chamber. Okay. And so now we're in the right ventricle, still in the pulmonary circuit. It's going to go through that pulmonary semilunar valve, and it's going to go to the lungs to exchange blood gases. Okay. And then we want to do this one. Okay. Now, when we talk about this together, is it more beneficial to have that 3D model in front of you, or maybe you want to grab a textbook? So think about that as you're writing this down, or maybe you would just prefer having both present. Either is fine. if you want a book, now would be the time to grab one. Would you want this heart model in front of you? Okay? So who's the cardiologist here? Was that thanks, or did you say the student's name? Oh, okay. Because I asked who the cardiologist was, I thought maybe you said the student's name. So, but since you said we'll take that, we'll put that there. Okay, left side of the room. Okay, so yes, you're going to have to share. And so who gets to take it apart? You know, oops, I should have known that. That doesn't stay, but because I was thinking, don't break anybody's heart. Yeah. Don't break the heart. Yeah. See, you broke the heart. Yeah. But good thing you can put it back together. Okay. Why is this significant? Well, anyone can argue maybe why or why not, but we'll let you decide the beginning of the pulmonary circuit or the systemic circuit. You pick. Systemic? Okay, so if it's the systemic circuit, that means blood is returning from the lungs or the rest of the body. The clue is systemic. So when you say we're starting with the systemic circuit, are we starting with coming from the lungs or the rest of the body?
Starting from the lungs.
Okay, then it would be the pulmonary circuit. The rest of the body, okay? So that means it's coming from the rest of the body into the right atrium, okay? And what that means is you have the vena cava, okay? Now, that's not this large vessel right here, okay? Because that's your pulmonary artery, even though it's blue. Your vena cava, then, is this large structure right here, and you have a superior side, because blood has to be able to drain from your cranial region in through your neck and drain down into these two structures and eventually into the vena cava from above. That makes that the superior vena cava. But that's not the only way blood gets back to the heart. It also enters from below. Okay? So what that means is if you have a superior vena cava, what might be from below then? Kind of like your spinatus muscles in the cat. You had on top the supraspinatus and then below infraspinatus. So here you have a superior vena cava and an inferior vena cava. It doesn't mean that it's irrelevant, it just means that it's below, okay? So it's, at this point, you can probably take that heart in half, and like this one, you just flip open like this. And what you can see is, I'm just gonna take him off the pedestal there, is that we can see that blood drains down into here. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. Okay, so this is the superior vena cava. And then down below, we said blood has to come back from the legs, all the way back from your legs, through your trunk, through your abdomen, through your thoracic cavity, and eventually through your inferior vena cava. And then you can see there's that inlet right there. So superior, inferior vena cava. Now, once that is in this chamber, okay, that right atrium contracts, and to keep blood from flowing backwards into the right atrium, it goes through a one-way valve, and that valve is called what? It's either the bicuspid or the tricuspid. Okay? It's either bicuspid or tricuspid. Remember, what side of the heart is this? Okay, so it's the tricuspid because that has an R in it, so it's the right-hand side. It goes through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. Now, once that ventricle contracts, okay, it's going through this valve right here, and we had said that this resembles a moon. So this is the pulmonary artery. What is it that means moon? Lunar. So this is the pulmonary semilunar valve, okay? So that right ventricle contracts, sending it through this blue pulmonary artery. Now you got to remember, why is this artery blue? There's no oxygen in there. Well, and like I said, there might be some residual oxygen in there, but chances are, a lot after the gas exchange has taken place in your cells, there's very little oxygen in there. So what happens, blood comes out of the pulmonary artery, that's blue, and it goes through the left pulmonary artery. That's why that's cut off here. The pulmonary artery going to the left lung. Then underneath this aorta, as it wraps around, you can see on the back side, there is the right pulmonary artery, because you have to be able to send blood to both lungs. So that's why, and you can't see that this pulmonary artery actually splits. So you can send it to your left lung and to your right lung, okay? Gas exchange has taken place in your lungs from the pulmonary circuit, because that's where this had left, okay? It's in the lungs. Now it's got to come back, okay? And where does it enter after gas exchange has taken place? Getting back to the heart. Is it into an atria or a ventricle? Yeah, because those are receiving, either receiving blood from the rest of the body or receiving blood from the lungs. Now, we see this here. These are red, okay? These are not arteries, okay? Because it's bringing blood back to the heart, okay? So that's what veins do. They bring blood back to the heart. So even though they're red, they're still veins. You have a left pulmonary vein, and you have a right pulmonary vein here. It's on the back side. They both converge and then dump into, this is the right pulmonary entrance. And then I don't know how well that can be seen on the camera. Then you have the left pulmonary entrance, okay? So now, the left atria contracts. It's going through one direction down into the left ventricle, and that is called which valve? The tricuspid or bicuspid? It is the bicuspid. And if you don't like the term bicuspid, you can also call it what? Starts with an M. The mitral valve, that's right, okay? So now that it's down into the left ventricle, the largest portion of the heart, that contracts and pushes it, not through here, because it went through this mitral valve already. You'd have to tip it on its side and see that there's three portions that make up the aortic valve, okay? And I think, does it look like little, what do I want to say, cups or it's kind of hard to describe, because what it looks like is, okay, this, okay, because what it looks like from underneath, nice circle. It should look, well, then that should be solid. So what those flaps open up, and then they close. So what it would look like from the side view is that. So what these things do is they come together, and I can't draw that in the 3 dimensions other than looking like that. But where they come together, these open up and slam shut, open up and slam shut, okay? So they open up, slam shut, open up, slam shut, and they form cusps, but you can't see that from the bottom. You can only see that from the top, okay? Open up, shut, open up, shut, open up, shut. That's what the valves do. Why are those valves present? It doesn't allow blood to do what? Flow forwards or backwards? Backwards. This allows forward movement, but once them valves slam shut, they form these cusps and don't allow blood to flow backwards. That's why these are so important. Okay. Any questions about? I don't think they have structures like this on here, because this model has the trachea and it's got the esophagus on there. I don't think it has those on there. Okay. Any questions about valves and chambers? Okay. So with that, I think we just want to go over a couple things. And it should be on your diagrams as well. I mean, the heart pumps blood. Why would there be blood vessels in the heart? It's already pumping blood. Why does it need vessels? There's those already, yeah, this blood is already here. Why does it have to have arteries and veins to it? Because the heart is what type of tissue? Right. And muscles need two things, oxygen and nutrients. Okay, it's already in the blood, oxygen and nutrients. So that has to be delivered to the heart itself. So what that means then is the last thing we'll talk about, at least, well, that's what happens when you try to put in the inferior vena cava. That don't work. There we go. Okay, so with the heart being a muscle itself, again, the last thing to talk about, it has to have these as well, coronary arteries and coronary veins. And then talk about the cardiac cycle tomorrow. And then I just want to go over some vessels today that you'll be required to know. And I would think that would be present on your heart model too. Yeah, I think if you look close. It's one of them things to where you would have to know it's there as you're looking at it to actually see it. Yes. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, does everyone have this information that wants it? Okay. Can we go ahead and shut this down? Okay, so I'm going to write some page numbers down here. Okay, 560, page 560. Okay. So there's a diagram A. Okay, on page 560 it just has an A. And there's a diagram B as well on page 560. Okay, so what you're definitely going to want to know, and we might add to this, okay, the chambers, okay, the valves, okay, and then definitely vena cava, aorta. Yeah, that's right. And then pulmonary artery, and then pulmonary vein. Okay. And one of the things I want you to, as you have that open, there's a figure 15.8, okay, on page 561, okay. Photograph of the heart valves, superior view, okay, and that's what we're trying to illustrate, how those cups come together, okay. And again, that is just showing one-way blood flow. So since you're looking at it from the top, okay, what happens is if it's flowing up, okay, that's the aortic and pulmonary semilunar valves, okay? Then, as you're looking at it, actually holding it to where it's in front of you, the right side, okay, the bottom right corner, that is the tricuspid valve. The bottom left corner then is the bicuspid valve. Now, that's, since it's going down, the valves don't work like this. They work like that. That's why you see that cup shape. Then once they slam shut, okay, that means it's going this direction. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay? So then the last thing I want to make sure that I think it's page 5. I was going to say 64, but I think that's not right. Page 593, okay? Now, that's got a portion of the heart, but it's a little more specific. Okay, page 5, I say 94, 93. Okay, and with that, all of them, okay? Now, that might sound, oh my gosh, all of them, but that includes a lot of these already that we saw on page 560, so all. The reason that's so important is because it's got that brachiocephalic trunk on there, okay? And what that means is this is the brachiocephalic trunk, this top portion of the aortic arch. Then these two, one of them, the interior one is the left common carotid, then the outside is the subclavian then. I think, yep, that's right. Okay, so I think that's probably enough for today. So that's something for you to so continually work on that. And excuse me. And the reason that we go over this in depth is because chances are, well, I shouldn't say chances, you're going to be asked that too the next time that you take this course in college. So we're trying to prepare you for that. All right, we'll catch up to you next time.